Hi, this is Jacqueline Bloomfield with my week 5 Bio 230 lab video, axial and appendicular skeleton. I'll be pointing out different areas of the skeleton model and giving you the names for them. So I'll start with the axial skeleton with the skull. Get a little bit closer here. Okay, so I'm going to start with the nasal bone from the lateral view, which is here, and the vomer, which is this center part right here, the ethmoid, which can be a little difficult to see, but it's that innermost marking in between those two lines, and the lacrimal, which is in between those median two lines, the sphenoid, which is in the back of the eye socket, the zygomatic, which is the cheekbone right here, maxilla right here, mandible here, frontal here. And switching to the posterior view of the skull, where the mandible is still visible here, the occipital, which is here, parietal bones, so you have one here and one here, and the temporal bones, which are on the side here. And from a lateral perspective, get a little bit closer, and you can still see the ethmoid bone right in there, and the lacrimal right there, the frontal bone here, the occipital, which is here, parietal up here, temporal here on the side, mandible here, maxilla here, nasal here, and zygomatic here. And from an inferior view of the skull, you can see I'm looking down at the inferior skull. You have the ethmoid, which is here, the frontal, which is here, occipital in the back here, parietal, which is over here, sphenoid in the center here, temporal right here. Okay, I'll put the skeleton back up and go over the vertebral column, starting with the axis, which leads up to the atlas. This is the very top of the cervical spine, which is the first 7. The next 12 here is the thoracic spine. The next 5 here, the lumbar spine. And then a fused 5 vertebrae create the sacrum. At the very end of the sacrum, you have a triangular bone called your coccyx. And turning the skeleton around, for the thoracic cage, you have the body of the sternum. At the top, you have the manubrium. You have the true ribs, which are the first 7 that connect directly to the body of the sternum. 8, 9, and 10 are called the false ribs because they connect to the true ribs as opposed to the actual body of the sternum. And then the final 2 on either side are floating ribs because they don't connect to anything anteriorly. Okay, now we'll go over the appendicular skeleton, starting with the pectoral girdle and the upper limbs. So we have the clavicle here, the scapula on the back here. We have the humerus, the ulna, the radius, and then down here at the hand and the wrist, we have we'll start with the medial side of the top carpals here. We have the hamate, the capitate, the trapezoid, and the trapezium. And more proximal to those, we have the scaphoid, the lunate, triquetrum, and the big bump here is the pisiform. And then we have the metacarpals here, and then these three right here, we have the proximal to distal phalanges. Next we have the pelvic girdle and the lower limbs, starting with the ilium, which is here, the ischium, down a little bit here, and the pubic bone here. We have the femur, which is the longest bone in the body, the patella here, the tibia here, and the fibula here. And then we have the ankle and the foot. So we have this big bump here is the calcaneus. And we have the cuboid, the lateral cuneiform, intermediate cuneiform, medial cuneiform, navicular, and the talus. And here, just like the hands, we have the metatarsals, followed by the proximal to distal phalanges. Thanks for watching.